I'm excited to be here with you today. I have been convicted recently about how I should be sharing what God is teaching me in His Word. And so recently He took me to Jonah and the whole book of Jonah. And so I'm going to be sharing a few videos about what God taught me through Jonah. And so we're going to be in Jonah chapter 1. You're more than welcome to pause the video and go read it if you'd like. But if not, you can just follow along with me. Now, when I'm looking for Jesus in every passage, I'm trying to ask myself certain questions to be able to find where Jesus is in the passage. And so the first question I like to ask myself, and this isn't something that I came up with, this is something that our church taught us, and I'm using it and I'm sharing it with you, my friends. The first question that we ask ourselves is, what is the sin condition that I find in all this? And the sin condition that I found in Jonah chapter 1 was that we like to do things on our own way. We tend to think that our way is better than God's way. The problem with that is that when you think that your way is better than God's way, what's going to end up happening is that your life is going to hurt. And not only is it going to hurt you, but it's going to hurt those around you as well. God tells Jonah to go to Nineveh, and he wants him to take them a message of salvation to them, of repentance, and saying that they need to turn to God. And Jonah is basically not about it. He doesn't like that idea because he says that those people are terrible. So he tries to flee from God. And in the midst of fleeing from God, there's this storm that happens in the boat that he is fleeing in. And basically, the people around him are trying to figure out what's going on. I know why this is happening. The reason this is happening is because I'm being disobedient to God. So Jonah recognized that he was being disobedient. And it's interesting because a lot of times when we look at this passage, we tend to think that we're more like Jonah. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't consider that we sometimes do things our own way and we try to flee from God. I'm not saying that you're not Jonah. But this is specifically something that God taught me, is that sometimes I act more like the people that were inside the boat along with Jonah. You see, in verse 12, it says, he said to them, talking about Jonah, "Pick me up and hurl me into the sea. Then the sea will quiet down for you, for I know it is because of me that this great tempest has come upon you." So Jonah recognizes that it is his fault that this whole storm is happening. He recognizes that his decisions, his actions, have actually caused pain, not just to himself, but to those around him. Now notice the way that the people in the boat with him actually respond. Verse 13, "Nevertheless, the men rowed hard to get back to dry land, but they could not, for the sea grew more and more tempestuous against them." They clearly heard Jonah tell them, "Throw me off the boat." But Jonah knew that that's what needed to happen. Jonah knew that that's what the only way that the tempest around them was going to actually come to an ease. Yet they didn't. They tried to do things on their own strengths. How many of us don't try to do the same thing? How many of us don't try and do things on our own because we think that that's the best way? Because God's way doesn't make sense. You see, it didn't make sense for them to throw Jonah into the boat. Yet that's what he said that they needed to do. Now look at what it says in verse 15. It says, "So they picked up Jonah and hurled him into the sea, and the sea ceased from its raging." Finally, they heard and they listened what God was telling them, and they said, "Okay, enough is enough. We're going to hurl Jonah into the sea." Now we're going to get more into Jonah's story, but really I wanted to focus in chapter 1 on the people that were with him. I want you to realize that sometimes we're just like those people. We try to do things on our own. We try to make our way towards land. And God is telling us, no, listen to what I have to tell you. Now, I don't know what you're going through in your personal life right now, and I don't know exactly how you're struggling in your relationship with God, but I can tell you that He wants you to have a relationship with Him. Jesus wants to have a relationship with you. Now, I started this whole video letting you know that I saw Jesus in this passage. Now, the first question I asked myself was, what was the sin condition? And I talked about that already. The next question that I asked myself was, how do I see the gospel in this? Well, it's actually in verse 12. When you go back to verse 12, Jonah is willing to sacrifice himself to save those around him, to be thrown off the boat into the raging waters, because he knew that that's what it was going to take to save the people around him. Let me tell you that that's exactly what Jesus has done for us. Jesus has gone to the cross for us. Jesus went to the cross because he knew that it was his sacrifice that was going to give us a chance to be saved. So how do I see Jesus in this passage? It's in the sacrifice that Jonah was willing to make. but Jesus was a better Jonah because Jesus is perfect. You see, Jonah deserved probably what he was going to get if he got thrown off, but Jesus didn't deserve the cross. Yet he went to the cross for you and for me. What is your relationship like with Jesus right now? Are you in a place where you're ready to say, Jesus, I want you to be my king. I want you to be my everything? If that's you, then I'd encourage you to, just pray and tell him, Jesus, I need you. I need you to be the ruler of my life. If you do, I'd love to know about that. If you have more questions, I'd like to know about that too. Thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you guys for taking out the time. I really appreciate you guys. Hasta luego.